This is the fourth meeting of the Citizens Government Review Committee. It's March 5, 2025. Brenda, could you call the roll?
Absolutely. All right, committee members, Kelp,
Here.
Jacobson,
Here.
Brocksterman,
Here.
Lloyd,
Here.
Martin, and Surratt.
Here.
All right, we have 6 present.
Next item on our agenda is the approval of minutes for both the February 5 and February 19 meetings. Brenda, thank you very much for some very extensive meetings put together, or minutes put together. So, committee have any additions, deletions, corrections to the February 5 meeting minutes? Hearing none, is there a motion to accept the,
I move we accept February 5 minutes as written.
okay?
Second.
Say thank you. So it's been moved and second to accept the February 5 minutes as submitted by staff. All in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Okay.
Anyone opposed?
Turn to the February 19 committee minutes. Again, any additions, deletions, corrections to be made to the minutes? Okay. Is there a motion to accept the February 19 minutes as submitted?
I motion to accept.
Second?
I second.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded to accept the February 19 minutes as submitted by staff. All in favor say aye.
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 All opposed? Okay. Okay. Good job, Brenda. Thank you. I want to take a moment to, and maybe 2 moments, to talk about the upcoming conferees for upcoming minutes. March 26, Zach, you were talked about getting somebody from the Greater Topeka Partnership.
Yes, so I know that an email has gone out and that representatives from downtown Topeka Incorporated and Go Topeka have respectfully declined. One is out of town. The other, Molly Howie, felt that she was, while she's been around Topeka long enough, wasn't Go Topeka's responsibility to come talk. Chamber President Juliet Abdel does have it in her calendar to come talk to us on March 26th. She is relatively new to the Topeka community, but has extensive backgrounds in, government advocacy work and things like that, and her previous roles as other chamber executives. So as of right now, we do have the chamber president coming to talk to us on the 26th of this month.
Okay, thank you, Zach.
I'm
Yep.
sorry, Zach. Chamber president,
Yes.
not downtown?
Correct.
Okay. Can I ask you a question? The Downtown Topeka Inc. had the conflict. Is that right?
Yes.
On the, and Go Topeka, do they want to submit any written comments?
I think that since they're all part of the Greater Topeka Partnership, it's all going to flow through the chamber. So I've invited others from the partnership to contribute to that conversation. I think they're just going to funnel it through one avenue. That way we kind of have our one contact person for our purposes.
Okay. So to be clear, the chamber is like the umbrella organization and they're the spokesperson?
Yeah, the partnership is they don't like the term umbrella organization, but they do house the Downtown Topeka Inc., the Chamber, Go Topeka, Economic Development, all those things kind of funnel through the Greater Topeka Partnership. So you get one and you get a little bit of everything.
Okay, in addition, we will have the president of the Topeka Shawnee County League of Women Voters, Mary Lou Davis, will be here on the 26th. Are you satisfied? Will that fill our agenda for that meeting? Hopefully we'll have some public input, public participation by then as well. And let me mention this, I was going to bring this up under other business, but it's appropriate here. For the March 26th meeting, I would like each of you to come to that meeting with a list of the issues that we have talked about to date that you think are worthy of discussion and possible consideration for making recommendations to the governing body. Now, I know that, it's kind of a preliminary thing, but I just wanted to kind of, we're at a point here where we've had a number of suggestions from the conferees, and just want to, so we don't jumble up everything at the end of this project, and just separate the wheat from the chaff, if you will. And we'll have a discussion about those issues, and make some preliminary consensus at least as to issues that might generate recommendations. So are you all okay with that?
Yeah,
Yes.
sounds great.
Okay,
Full
great.
disclosure, I'm a member of the league. I don't know if that's, I just want to let you know that. Since I've retired, I've become a little more active in the league, so I don't know if that's a conflict of interest or what, but.
We're all involved. I'm involved in the partnership, so
Okay,
yeah.
all right.
Okay, that's March 26. We have openings for April 9 and April 23. And then we were going to, at a future meeting, we were going to take a look at the May meetings, but need some suggestions for conferees for April 9 and April 23. Hopefully, we'll be getting public input, public comment, but, that's an uncertainty at this point.
Have we gotten any more council members wanting to come in to talk?
I haven't received any requests from any of them, but I can absolutely reach out again and
Yeah,
see
can we
if,
send another request, please?
absolutely.
I do, on the subject of council members, and I think I mentioned this before, there are a number of former council members that had pretty lengthy service to the city and fairly recent. But I don't know if do you guys want to go down that path of inviting? I think Lisa Stubbs, was a council member for a number of years, ran for mayor, and I think she had some input. I think she spoke at one of the 2014 committee meetings. I believe that's in the Reardon's report. And I know he also got comments from Doug Mays, former council member, former speaker of the Kansas House. And Doug is still around as well. And Dwayne Pomeroy is a longtime council member and briefly served as a mayor, interim mayor. And he's certainly still around and very active in the community. So those are just suggestions. I don't know where you guys' heads are in terms of hearing from folks like that. I know all three of those people, and they're, excuse me, they are bright. They have a long history of civic obligations, but it's up to you guys. Any thoughts?
Chair, if I may.
Yes.
Chair, this is Marcus Miller, District 6. I just want to let you guys know I was here and I am listening. I wasn't going to be there in person today, but today's my daughter's 19th birthday, so I'm actually on the way delivering food to her to Kansas City right now. So the next one that I'm able to be in person, I want to be able to let Tanya know that, or not Tanya, I'm sorry, I apologize, let Ms. Younger know that I'll be there in person to be able to answer any questions that you guys may have.
So that's another councilman.
And what date was that you could be here in person?
I believe the next meeting is the 29th, correct?
The 26th.
26.
26, and it's going to be a daytime one?
That one will be in the evening.
Okay, so the evening Wednesdays I cannot do because I coach basketball, but these times in the morning, I'm able to make those. So which one is the next one for an 11 a.m. meeting?
April 9th.
April 9th. I believe my calendar is open that day.
Perfect. We'll schedule for April 9th. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
We could reach out to these former elected officials. Have we exhausted our list of folks that are positions that we want to hear input from? Have we reached the end of what we discussed or not?
People currently in the city government?
Yes, well, or around in the area that could give us some information or input. I think we're getting close to that,
Yeah.
into that list pretty quick.
Right. I would like, Joan Wagner, I'm just a fan, I love her. I would hope, can we reach out to that? But I would also like, the Hispanic and African American, councils they have, to hear from them. What about some seniors? You know, I would like to kind of broaden to invite personally some public members to come. I think that we would get more engagement if we asked, you know, like LULAC or something. So what do you guys think about that?
That's exactly what I was thinking, was LULAC. I'm okay with that.
That's good. That's good. I had mentioned at a previous meeting the organization JUMP, Topeka JUMP, and I got kind of a mixed response to that. But they seem to have, I mean, they're representing almost 20 ministries across the city, and very active in housing and the homeless and all that. Would you be receptive to asking
Yes.
a representative of JUMP?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And if they cannot come, written commentary would be most
Yes.
appreciated as well.
Yes.
Whatever works for them.
Do you have contact with LULAC?
Yes, I have.
Reviewing the committee, if you need committee members starting today, if you can call me back, this is my work cell, I'd appreciate it. I'm submit in probably about 30 minutes, and so if I don't answer, that's the reason why. I just asked you to hang out and maybe it would be pretty
I'm sorry,
self-help.
who is this?
Appreciate it. Thank you. Message deleted. Next message received today at 11:03.
Jane, can you hear us? You're not on mute, please.
Perfect.
Thank you, Dan. Okay. And you'd also mentioned the senior citizens. Is there an organization in the community that?
Yes, the East Topeka Senior Citizens, they are growing and they're doing a lot more stuff and expanding. I know the CEO there, so I can contact her too.
And it's East Topeka,
East Topeka Senior Citizen.
okay? You all okay with that?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah.
But their focus is on senior citizens,
Yes.
obviously, okay? So you will make contact
Yes.
for April 9th?
Yes.
Okay, I think we're kind of full
Okay.
on April 9th, if that,
Okay.
so with that, so what about April 23? Any thoughts there?
Because, you know, Jim, really, people should have like the 15 minutes. We've just been going over. But if everybody come in and do their 15 minutes, we'll have time.
So know that seeing what was sent out to DTI and Go Topeka, that making sure that people understand what they're being asked to come talk about as well. I know that when I came to the chamber president, there were some questions about what do you want us to talk about? And so giving them our mission or what are we here for, I think will help them kind of give us what
Yes.
their perspective is, because this, we're very specific in our goals, and so I think that we owe it to any guests
Yes.
to let them know exactly what kind of answers or perspective we want out of them.
I agree.
Good point. You want to leave the former council members out of it for right now? The ones I mentioned?
Yeah.
Yeah, for right now.
Okay, all right. Just one other institution that came to mind, and I don't know what your thoughts are on that, but Washburn University is obviously a major part of this community. I don't know that they would have anything necessarily to say to us about city government, but it is a municipal university. We'd be looking for substantive comments, not just a diplomacy. So I don't know. Does it make any sense to ask Washburn?
I mean, our jurisdiction is city charter. I mean, I think everyone should be invited, even if it's just a, hey, if you know anybody at Washburn that wants to come talk about it, we're not asking them to come talk about it, about something that they may not be involved in at all.
Because that's
Well,
what we're,
yeah.
you know.
Exactly, and if they had some concerns, then they would come for the public comment part of our meetings. Because I'm thinking, who would we ask at Washburn to come talk to us?
I mean, I know that Washburn
science.
has like former city staff on faculty that have had some experience. You know, I think of like Bill Fiander and things like that. But other than that, you know, they're just dealing administratively with the city, not necessarily with the city charter itself.
Well, how about this? How about, would you be okay if I contacted whoever the public information officer or
Jim, I have a contact at Washburn. I'll
and see if there's an interest?
I'll reach out if there's an interest.
Okay.
You know, and if they kind of say, well, what's the point, then that'd be the end of the discussion
Yep.
with that. But,
Yep.
so that becomes a courtesy call at that point, but
I'll have
are you
an-
okay with that?
I'll have an update at next meeting.
Perfect.
Thank you, Brian.
I would like that also the invitation to go out to department heads. A lot of talk last meeting with the chief of police. That'd be interesting, and different fire chief.
So do you want to ask for department head input on, for the 23rd?
The 23rd would be the open space, yeah.
Okay. Your thoughts? So, yeah, if they choose to, either in person or written, or by Zoom,
And
whatever
I know that
works.
we've got a brand new police chief, so he might
Right.
bring some new perspective from
Some new
his
eyes,
other
absolutely.
experiences. Yeah.
Brenda?
Yeah, I can send out an invitation to the department directors as a whole. Is there, outside of police and fire, is there someone else that you guys are specifically interested in hearing from?
Any
who else?
available,
Any
Yeah.
of them?
yeah.
Okay.
They would all have input.
Okay, sounds good.
Strong one might be is it assistant or deputy city manager now? But
Braxton Copley is
Yeah.
our assistant
Right,
city
yeah.
manager.
Okay, do you think we're set for April 9 and April 23?
Yes.
I believe so.
Yeah, if we can land all these, yeah,
I
we'll
think
be set.
we would have some media, excuse me. And Connie has volunteered to be the public face for the committee and is going to be making some public appearances, we think, right? Radio, TV.
I guess I apologize in advance
And I
for
would
that.
clear, that happened sometime prior to the April 23 meeting?
We looked at, and Mr. Garrett and I just spoke before the meeting. Where'd it go? And we're looking at WWW on March 13th, next Thursday. And then their Red Couch, and then Fox 43 AM Live the following Thursday on the 20th. So by the time the March 26th meeting comes around, I would have done both.
perfect.
So hopefully we'll have a room full of people.
Oh, I don't know
willing to
about
make
that.
comments.
And
Connie, my Zoom was messed up. Do you think it would be advantageous for a couple of us to go, like different, either like me or a man or something, two of us to go? Or do y'all think hers just enough?
I think one's enough.
Okay.
Connie, what times were those?
The 13th, next Thursday is the WWW Red Couch, and that starts at 4 p.m. And then the following Thursday, the 20th, is Fox 43 AM Live, and the show starts at 9.
Well, tell people to come down here, okay?
Or submit written testimony.
Okay, we hear from our conferees now. We okay with that? And we've got a good lineup today, again. And first speaker, Dr. Robert Perez, City Manager, is here. And I've asked him to come up here and sit next to me so I can hear him. Dr. Perez, I appreciate you coming in. Oh, you're a busy man. Can you give us a 30-second summary of your life story? I know you've got a number of educational degrees which are impressive.
Thank you, Honorable Chair, members of the committee. My name is Robert Perez. I am the city manager for Topeka. Been here just over 8 months now. Definitely has not been boring. Previous to my time here in Topeka, I spent about 16 years with the city of San Antonio. Actually starting off as a temporary social worker while I was still in undergrad. Worked my way up to a public works division manager. After my time in San Antonio, I went and spent about six and a half years with the city of Dallas. Started off as assistant director of public works, worked my way up to assistant city manager, which I was in that position for a little over 2 years before coming here to Topeka. As mentioned, as far as my formal education, undergraduate degree in English with a minor in political science. I have a master's in public administration and a doctorate in education with a concentration in organizational leadership. So, a little over 20 years of municipal government experience between San Antonio, Dallas, and here, all been council manager, former governments, and so it's been a ride, but it's been fun. And the weather here is something else. We dealt with ice, things like that in Dallas, but definitely never had 14 inches of snow, and everybody thinks that I brought the weather with me from Texas, but I'm just like, no. But no, that's definitely something I think that I do have to give it up to the teams here. While I am from Texas, the folks here definitely have, when it comes to snow and ice, definitely have the processes down. And then we just got a director of public works from South Dakota. So I mean, he was definitely Johnny on the spot as far as having another good leader within the teams as we dealt with historic snowfalls this season. So it's while I feel I know a number of things, I definitely have a team around me who are definitely very well versed and very have a lot of good experience to fill the gaps that I have. So I know it's a little bit more than 30 seconds, but.
Well, have you had time to fix all the problems the city has, or there's still some out there?
One of the very wise council members, probably within the first couple weeks, told me, Robert, you're not going to fix everything, in the first month. So just, prioritize the things that you hear from the governing body, from the public, from the staff, and then just, work on those, a bit at a time. Unfortunately, it can't be just like, oh, well, let's do this first and let's do that second, because everything's just, it's here. You may have seen yesterday, we did brief the governing body on the 10 strategic goals that we have for FY 2025. That's everything from selling the Hotel Topeka to establishing a violent crime reduction plan. Again, the strategic goals were basically based upon things that I've heard from the governing body, from the public, and then also from our respective teams. Within those 10 strategic goals, there's 7 focal points: quality of life, public safety. I don't have it all memorized, but yeah, we've been able to get focus on the 7 focal points, the 10 strategic goals within those focal points, and then several additional goals by department under that presentation. I told council last night it's definitely not an exhaustive list of everything that the departments will be working on, but at least for us, high level, there's 10 goals that we have to accomplish for this year.
I don't know if you have some prepared comments that you want to make, or do you want us to stand for questions?
Yeah, I think that I've gone back and I've heard the different presentations that you received. I think that I'm hoping that you have a pretty good understanding of the various forms of government. The gentleman from KU, I think it was the last meeting, I think he gave a great presentation on government, and so yeah, so I'll stand for any questions. If there's anything specific that you want to ask, I'm here.
Yeah, I know in some of the previous iterations of the review committee, been questions about the basics. I mean, just the basic structure, whether or not it's the city manager form of government or not. I think what we've heard to date, and I think I can say this for the committee, that there really is no interest in re-examining the basic form of government. That city manager form of government is what this city needs. Now, we may hear a lot from the public as they start to come in and speak to us, but I think people have good understanding of the nature of city manager form of government and how it's operated in Topeka and how it's been an improvement over the old commission form of government, which you weren't here for that, and also the strong mayor council form of government. So, Dr. Perez, again, I think I'd speak for the committee that there's a lot of interest in knowing that the public has input to City Hall. And I know it's probably dangerous to make comparisons between Dallas and Topeka. I don't know how Dallas handled citizen concerns, complaints, or constructive criticisms. But what do you see here in terms of the structure that's in place in City Hall for the citizen that, and I don't know, just talk about potholes, because everybody talks about potholes. But so let's go with that. I had a pretty hard hit on a pothole this morning coming down here. How does that process work? How does it come to your attention, and then what do you do with it?
Right. So two ways. One, well, I guess three ways. Well, actually, how many council members do we have? 10 ways. No, I'm just kidding. But no. So typically for something like that or any city service, we have our C-Click Fix application. It's if somebody has a pothole or something that they need to report, hopefully they're not doing it while they're driving, but they have an opportunity to enter a service request for that pothole. Right. We also do have our customer service line. I'm not sure if everybody realizes it, but we do have, through our utilities group, a call center. And so if people don't want to do C-Click Fix, they can actually call that call center. One of the strategic goals that we are looking at for this year is to how we can streamline that process, because it's here it's dial 785-368-3111. Previous cities that I've worked, it's just 311. You just call 311. And it's interesting because one of the things that we've found is that sometimes people will call 911 to try to get a hold of a regular service. And so we're trying to streamline, it's either 911 for an emergency or 311 for non-emergency. That 311 would basically give you access to any city service. And whether that team member would actually input a service request directly into our CityWorks, or they maybe transfer them to the right department. So that's one of the things as far as a goal, one of the strategic goals we have this year is to streamline that process. So potholes, things like that can basically, they can be handled by the team. However, sometimes the information will come via a council member, which will come to us. And then also sometimes too, folks will just email me directly at our city manager citymanager@topeka.org email, and I'll typically, believe it or not, respond to a lot of them, or I'll direct it to the right department, and just copy whoever emailed it. So it's it's pretty interesting. It's a little gratifying too sometimes, because sometimes I'll hear back from our constituents or our residents saying, hey, thanks for taking the time, or I didn't expect you to email I typically call people back if they call and ask for something, even if they just want to yell at me. So I'll take that too. So there's various ways as to how folks can get in contact with us, get in contact with me. We have our office line on the website, and so there's various methods of how folks. Sometimes even I think through Facebook we get things too. So
Is it disruptive of your system when the complaint comes via a council member, or is that just kind of the cost of doing business with a mayor, as manager, council, form of government?
No, it's not disruptive. I mean, it's just another avenue for folks to get in touch with us. And sometimes, sometimes by the time it elevates to a council member, sometimes it's because, I tried calling the city, nobody got back to me, and so, which is definitely not, it doesn't happen often. But sometimes folks are just more comfortable reaching out to a council member who will get in touch with us or the right teams.
But overall, what's your level of satisfaction with the way in which the citizens can have input to City Hall, whether it's a complaint or just a straight-up question? Or
I mean, I'm pretty satisfied. Again, I do see a bit of an opportunity for us to streamline our customer service. Again, just and it's going to be selfish too. I'll say this: I'd rather have our 911 dispatchers. I'd rather have our public safety folks not have to deal with, hey, we have a down tree limb or something. I'll tell you, Monique and her team have been very instrumental on working with not just the Shawnee County dispatchers, but TPD, and just bringing everybody to the table to see how we solve this. So it is definitely something I want to streamline between, hey, you know what? If you do have an emergency call 911. If you do have a service concern, let's call 311. That way it's just, and also too, you're not having to do 368, whatever. It's just 311. That's it. But again, that's one of the goals that we have for this year is to streamline that customer service process.
one of the conferees we had earlier suggested that the city have an annual performance survey, random survey of the community just for overall satisfaction. And the city has periodically done that over the years, but what would you think about an annual satisfaction?
So I don't think it's a bad idea. I will tell you, we were actually going to do it last summer, but given you probably heard maybe some of the budget challenges and whatnot, we actually postponed it. We plan to do it this year. But don't ask me what the cost is off the top of my head, but it's not a bad idea, because then every year you get to have data to compare and see where you improve in, and those areas that you need to maybe improve in.
One of the other issues, and I would jump in, folks, okay, this isn't me, okay? But one of the other conferees brought up a subject that was also a topic in the 2014 review committee, and that was city-county consolidation. Mm-hmm. And I think it is, to me at least, it seems obvious that an actual consolidation is a pipe dream, okay, for a number of reasons. But the conferee was suggesting there are probably ways in which the city and the county can work in a more cooperative fashion on more topics and just more of a common cause. What are your thoughts about that?
So I will definitely agree that I think there's places that we can work better together. I will point out that I think towards the end of last year, we had a joint city council / Shawnee County commission meeting. As I understand, that was probably one of the first ones that we've had, if not the first. And I think that there's common topics that our governing bodies can sit and discuss, and obviously there's some pieces of the puzzle that are within Shawnee County, and then there's some pieces of the puzzle that reside within the city, Topeka. And so, but I think that the more that our governing bodies can work together, I think the better outcome that we'll have. I'll just say that, I mean, there's definitely some opportunities for us to work closer together.
Would it make sense to have regularly scheduled joint meetings?
As long as we have a topic,
Yeah.
as long as we have topics to discuss, I think that's helpful.
Well, I'm thinking of something that's in the top of the list these days is dealing with the homeless, unsheltered people, which it's been primarily the city which has been addressing the unsheltered. I don't know if the county's been playing a role at all, but it seems to be would seem to be a county issue as well.
That was the topic that brought us together last fall.
Okay.
That the two governing bodies got together to hear a briefing from all hands on deck, so it's definitely one of those topics that covers both the county and the city, and that's specifically what brought us together, was to discuss where we're at with our homeless efforts.
Speaking,
The
sorry. You wanted to-
the potential or likely cuts in federal funding, I imagine is something that you're looking at or anticipating, and that hits the county as well. Would that be a topic for how do you plug the gaps? How do you fill the holes collaboratively? Or would it make sense to work collaboratively with the county to plug some of the holes, whether it's housing or public health, mental health?
So we have identified, as a city team, we've identified our federal funding, whether they be grants or just ongoing dollars. We have been fortunate to this point to not have been affected by that, but wherever there's opportunities for collaboration, I think that there's opportunities for us to do so, but we just at this point we haven't been affected to this point.
Champagne, you had something?
Speaking of the unsheltered, so yesterday, you guys have came up with a plan, and we keep hiring, and I believe it will be the city manager that hires the outside sources to come in and tell us what we're supposed to do, what we need to do, and all that for the unsheltered, right? So you're the one that hires the outside sources. Is that a application process, or do you try to look from in-home? Like, I just didn't know that process, but I do believe the city manager is the one that makes the calls on that, correct?
So typically, whenever we hire an outside consultant, we'll do a request for proposals. So it's a competitive process that goes through, that we put out for, it's a solicitation that anybody can submit a proposal for.
Okay.
And so there's certain criteria that are used to rate proposals that are submitted. And then based upon that rating structure is typically how contracts are awarded for that type of service.
Okay. Yeah. And Jim spoke of collaborations. I was thinking of Douglas County. They have a very vibrant and effective program for the unsheltered, getting them off the streets. Not saying that Topeka doesn't, because
Right.
Topeka has wonderful people, but those kind of collaborations, would that be advantageous to us, considering, I mean, I know it's county, but collaborating with the same like issues, is that something you're open to? And did you do that, in Texas and stuff, I'm assuming, because it's huge, like.
Yeah. So anytime you can bring more partners to the table, I mean, you bring different ideas. You sometimes you bring different resources. So anytime you have opportunities for collaboration, I mean, particularly like if you as a team can come together with one goal and everybody's pushing towards that, I mean, you're typically going to have better success. I will tell you, in Dallas, there was a lot of private sector involvement in in addressing our homelessness population. Mostly because a lot of times the businesses are the ones that are affected by homeless people, either or unsheltered folks, either sleeping out in front of their businesses or even sometimes customers don't want to go where there's homeless folks. So again, the more partners that you have involved in it, all sectors, I mean, the more successful any efforts are probably likely going to be.
Okay. Okay, so you are open to that. And my last thing about the unsheltered, so what happened yesterday, I seen the city response to the gentleman who got hurt. He ain't near death like everybody was saying, but he did get hurt. So who made the call to stop? Because I appreciated that, because it was like, rain or shine, we're doing this. And then the people part came in and somebody said, okay, let's stop. And so you're the one making those kind of calls, right? So you're managing all the efforts,
right?
Correct?
So when the teams made me aware of what happened yesterday with the incident, which is unfortunate accident, the teams had told me, hey, we're stopping for the day. And so, I mean, the call, that's the beauty of being able to empower managers and other department heads is, they'll make those calls. Okay. So by the time it got to me, they're like, hey, we're suspending our operations for the day, especially knowing that we had like the weather coming in as well. And then, hey, we're investigating what happened. And I mean, but I guess basically like the call had already been made by the time it got to me that, hey, we're suspending operations for the day while we investigate this.
Okay.
And then, yeah. So it is under investigation, and but again, too, the teams are empowered to make those choices, and obviously, if it came to me and it was, hey, we're going to keep going, and be like, oh, wait, but the teams are empowered to make those calls, and they make those judgments every day.
Okay, so that's what I was drawing out, that you're not micromanaging.
Oh,
You just, you are empowering the people who are leading these efforts. They have
Absolutely.
The girth to do what they need to. Okay.
Right, and one of the things too, I will say that we have not had here that I am looking to implement is I heard y'all reference the deputy city manager earlier. Where we're going and what I've shared with the governing body, and they're aware of this, is I am looking to hire, and so like our CFO, for example. Our CFO has historically just been our finance director. What I'm looking to actually implement here, which is again in larger cities and even in our sister cities, Manhattan, Lawrence, Wichita, is underneath the city manager, you'll have a deputy city manager. Deputy city manager oversees our infrastructure and development portfolio of departments. So that deputy city manager oversees public works, utilities, and planning and development services. So that's a portfolio of departments. The CFO, which has historically just been the finance director, will also be a CFO/assistant city manager overseeing our internal services, so our human resources, our IT, So when somebody asked me, well, what are they going to do? I was just like, well, they're basically going to be the city managers over that portfolio of departments. And so that gives a little bit more of the day-to-day type, like the information, the way the information yesterday, the incident that happened yesterday, the way it flowed was our department head was notified, department head notified deputy city manager notified me. Okay. And so by this point, like these decisions have already been made. Hey, we're gonna pause the operations and just want to let you know. And so now it's once it gets to me, it's really a matter of like, hey, everyone's safe. What's the status? Take that information, give it to the governing body, let them be aware of this. And then as we start getting questions from the media, obviously push out a press release. So it's my teams are empowered to make decisions that they need to make. Obviously, by the time it gets to me, if I don't agree with something, I'm just like, hey, no, we need to do X, Y, and Z instead. But again, decisions are made faster on the spot, and again, have some very, very smart and talented people working with me who I trust. And that means actually the world to me to have folks like that I work with.
Okay, so your goal is to expand the CFO position, giving them more, okay.
Right.
Dr. Perez, I think we have some more questions, but under the rules that these folks adopted, we have a 20-minute time limit on conferees, but which can be extended, and I would ask for a motion to extend the time for Dr. Perez for up to an additional 15 minutes, up to that amount, between now and 15 minutes. Is there a motion to that effect?
Do we have a lot of discussion left, a lot of questions? Oh, sorry.
That's okay. I was just saying, it can take place by consensus. You don't need a formal vote. I think if everyone agrees that we're not done discussing things with Dr. Perez, then we can move forward for the next 5, 10, 15 minutes or whatever. But of course, it's up to the committee.
Yeah, I think that Champlain probably asked the question that I was going to ask regarding how the structure of the city is. I know you have some vacancies within your departments, and there's a hiring freeze. So how do you foresee combining those and making sure that the city is getting taken care of if we have deficit people or we don't have anybody in that job?
Right. So, so because I mean, you mentioned this, like we talked about the CFO. Right now, we're paying an interim CFO through an outside consulting group. And then, but again, going back to the staff and really empowering the staff, I would tell you we have a pretty amazing budget group, budget and finance group. I mean, it's don't get me wrong. It is for me. Yes, I am. You know, everything kind of stops with me, right? But the team, I'm hoping that they realize that they're empowered to make decisions and to. And it's not just them. I'm thinking about like our budget staff, right? Our division director, he's relatively fresh, super smart kid. Sorry, super smart guy. I say kid, I'm like, oh my God, like I can't believe. Anyways, whole other story. But we also have, again, we have the CFO, interim CFO that helps us. We also have financial advisors that we also contract with, and so it's not any one person. And then for me, like I love budget too, so like I'm often involved in that. Is it something that I've seen a city manager do? Not to this level, but again, because like the team's not in place, it's not full. And again, our interim CFO, I mean, he's here when we need him, but he's not here doing the day to day. And so a lot of that day to day stuff comes to me, and the hiring freeze. We are still approving positions. When we talked or when we announced it, when I shared it with the department heads, when I shared it with the city staff, when I shared it with the media, that we are still committed to filling our mission critical positions, public safety positions. Okay. We have a position review committee that meets every 2 weeks. It's comprised of HR, our budget team, and then the department heads, whoever's trying to request positions. So we're just asking the questions. Give an example in our finance department. Budget director, he was like, hey, we have this position it's a accounts payable position. It's been open since December. He's like, rather than fill the position, would you be okay with us doing a reclass of another position to actually supervise the existing accounts payable position, and essentially we reclass somebody, give them a little bit of a bump in salary, but then we don't hire that vacant AP position, and so we're able to account for those savings. So those are the things that as we go through, we call it a hiring freeze, but it's really more of a scrutinized position approval process that like when we weren't in a hiring freeze, we weren't doing this, things would just come across my desk and I'm like, hey, fill it. But now understanding where we're at, which we did discuss with council during our the last several months with our budget process. And so again, it's more of a, hey, you know what? We have this position vacant. Are there opportunities to maybe divvy out some of their responsibilities to existing staff? Right, exactly. And so, but yeah, again, these other positions that we're talking about, like the CFO, we're paying somebody right now to do that, and just to do the finance piece. Again, this position, the way it's envisioned now, is would actually supervise more than just the finance and budget folks, but actually the department heads to handle more of the day-to-day. I'm also looking for a similar position for our public safety, so somebody who oversees the day-to-day of police, fire, courts, and emergency operations. And again, the idea is to really try to bring the teams together. I know people talk about silos and everything, but to actually have somebody that's, you know, connecting the dots, saying, hey, you know what, police and fire, not that this isn't happening, but police and fire, like, you know, we probably need to do more joint training on active shooters or what have you. So yeah, so it's really, it's twofold. One, it helps me with the day-to-day management of our teams, but also two, and not that I'm trying to replace myself, but in the event that, you know, I win the lottery or something, City Council really has a sustainable model in place to continue the operations of the department, and then also two, it allows me to develop folks who might want to be a city manager, and you know they have that opportunity to pick. So yeah, so there's a lot of, I think there's a lot of positives out of this forum.
I had kind of a question based on the roles. You know, we've talked a lot about the administrative side of things. In your experience in other cities, and we've talked about how everybody seems to be pretty happy with the council manager kind of form. In working with this council and with this governing body, do you feel that those duties and roles are pretty well separated and they work well together? Or do you think that there is too much pressure on your position and the city staff rather than the governing body? Is there anything that you identified in your time here so far that could be improved upon as far as, you know, our purview of the city charter and our form of government?
So what I like about our form of government is that there really has to be consensus from the governing body on how we move forward, right? I think that, again, there's opportunities for folks, for our governing body members, if there's priorities that they have, especially if it involves allocating funding towards it, the governing body really has to weigh in on that. That's why, like last night, when we were discussing the strategic goals, it was very much, you know, I developed a list, I shared it with the governing body and our department heads. Hey, you know, this is where I think we're, you know, from everything that I've heard, this is where I think we all want to go. And you know, the governing body vetted that list. The department has added, you know, other goals that fell underneath those focal points. And then last night we were saying, hey, you know what? This is what, you know, I developed based upon what I've heard from you, from the public, from the teams. This is where we're going to go this year. Yeah, and we had conversations with several of the governing body members ahead of time. So I think everybody had consensus as far as where we're going to go. Are there going to be opportunities for, you know, for other priorities that might come up throughout the year, obviously. But again, it gives some direction from the governing body to us as staff to say, hey, yes, you've heard correct. These are the major priorities, like sell the hotel. But yeah, it's more so also a pulse check for us to say, hey, governing body, this is what we've heard. Are we on the right page? Yes, we're on the right page. Okay, go execute. What I really enjoy, what I really appreciate from the governing body is, you know, they give us the goals. They give us, you know, you go look at the budget book, and they tell us where the priorities are, and for the most part, like 99% of the time, they let us just go execute. We come back, we report, whether it be to committees or to the governing body. They give us the guidance or direction, and And a lot of times, I think what folks don't understand is what you see in the meetings in public is really a result of all the discussions, all the questions that have been asked before we get out to the public. There's a lot of work that happens behind the scenes, and so for the most part, I think that we work pretty well together. I think the form of government works well, and yeah, it's fun.
So to be clear, you are happy with the balance of power and responsibility of our current form of governance?
So, I'm happy with the current form of government. I think that again, for the most part,
You're
like,
happy that we have the city manager form of government, right? Okay.
Yeah. Well,
That's a headline.
Yeah, no, definitely, and I've told the governing body, they're very good as far as directing us, giving, offering up suggestions, and again, just letting us know where we need to course correct, and yeah, to this point, it's been good.
Great.
Yeah.
I have one last question. I'm thinking back all the way to the meet and greet back months ago, and you emphasized your interest in affordable housing. And the city has different initiatives going on at any point in time on housing. I'm not sure how visible those are to the public at large. Excuse me. But I'm on the planning commission here, and we're pretty much immersed in the subject of housing and meeting with NIAs and neighborhood associations. There is a consensus that more needs to be done. And I'm looking at the budget, just one small piece of what the city does is the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. And that money was put in, I think, last year or 2 years ago, and it just stayed constant. It's not being drawn down. And it's a question of how much can be done with the $1 million in the first place. Other cities will have a dedicated source of funding, a sales tax or a tax levy to maintain a higher funding at a higher level. Do you give any thoughts to the city council about the Affordable Housing Trust Fund and the results of that were?
So there's a couple things. One, one of the goals that I put out, strategic goals I put out, and we discussed yesterday, was to activate the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, and also we have about $500,000 sitting in an economic development fund. And I've definitely heard that the funding has been sitting there for a minute. So that's actually one of the goals that I have for this year is to activate that money. Councilman Duncan, a couple weeks ago, I think in the mayor's press conference, also made the same statement that we need to activate those funds. The challenge that you've already identified is that the way that it's sitting right now, we don't have a sustainable funding source for it. So if we do anything, there's two ways this can go. We can either give out money for us to subsidize affordable housing, or maybe flip some homes or something. But the challenge with that is that once that money is gone, it's gone, right? One of the things that we've been talking about is finding some way to potentially partner with somebody who could maybe do some kind of public-private partnership with us, to where maybe, and I don't know the semantics or details on it, but we want to find a way that it can sustain, the fund can sustain itself. Whether that's we partner with somebody to build a house, we fund part of it, sell it, proceeds come back to the city and to the partner. I mean, there's different ways that we can do that, but that's definitely a challenge as to how we sustain that fund. The last few months, we have been talking about a potential sales tax initiative, half cent, to where there could be something carved out to be a sustainable funding source, not just for the two areas that we looked for outside of public safety, to be funded by sales tax, which would be new money for these two areas. One was affordable housing, the other one was for homelessness. You mentioned Douglas County and Lawrence. They just recently passed, I think, is 1/10 of a cent sales tax for homeless initiatives in Lawrence. And so to look at a sustainable funding source for the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, there could potentially be a sales tax initiative to support that. That was actually, if you go back and look at some of the discussions that we've had with the governing body, it was a 1/2 cent sales tax to support public safety, affordable housing, and homelessness. The questions came up, well, how's that going to be split out? What's it going to be used for? And then also too, I've shared with the governing body, shared with our teams that there's some things that I think that we need to do internally with our budgeting first, so the community can see that, you know, we've gone through the processes of really trying to streamline our budget, our operations, going back to the hiring freeze, and hey, are there different ways that maybe we don't need to fill that position? We want to ensure, and we want to be as transparent to the community as possible that, you know what, we are running a lean budget, that there's not, I can't say there's never going to be, you know, some trimming that can't be done, but we're running a very, you know, pretty lean budget, and we've done all these things, we made these cuts, so that way, you know, when we come to the public for consideration of sales tax, they know that we've done our homework and that we've done what we need to do to ensure that we're running a lean organization. So yes, there could potentially be opportunities for sales tax to serve as a sustainable funding source for affordable housing.
So it's safe to say the affordable housing is still high on your priority list.
Oh, yeah.
And it's going to stay there.
Yeah, it's one of the goals, one of the strategic goals that we discussed last night.
Any other questions for the city manager?
Let him have the rest of his day back.
Yeah.
It's been
Yeah,
good.
we have two more
It's been
presenters,
helpful.
and we're halfway
Yes,
done,
ma'am.
so
Yeah.
we need to move on.
I appreciate you, Chair and Committee. Thank you so much.
for coming.
Thank you. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Don. Appreciate it. Our second conferee is Monique Glaude, who wears a number of hats and has more titles than anybody else in City Hall, I think.
Right.
And why don't you tell us those titles, Monique?
Sure. Good afternoon, all. Monique Glaude, Director of Community Engagement, Interim DEI Officer, ADA Coordinator, and I've also assumed the responsibilities as the Ombudsman.
Just a couple of things here and there, yeah.
Just a few. So with 19 years of unwavering dedication, I've committed my tenure to empowering and uplifting our community. I'd like to tell you that there's no I in team. I have a very impactful and engaged team, and so I'd like to just share with you, if I could, what it is that we do at Community Engagement. I provided you a PowerPoint, and I promise I won't take 20 minutes to go through this, but just wanted to share a few things with you. So allow me to introduce Community Engagement in the Ombudsman's Office to you. Our focus is on strengthening relationships between the community and local government, advocating for transparency, fairness, and inclusivity in public service, and empowering neighbors to have a voice in decision-making. So what is community engagement? Community engagement is a bridge between our neighbors and government officials. We focus on listening, collaboration, and action. We encourage public participation in policy, programs, and projects, and we use outreach events consisting of town halls, digital platforms, and surveys to connect with the community. Some of our key goals are 1, transparency and trust, 2, inclusion, 3, partnerships and collaboration, and lastly, problem solving and advocacy. So what is an ombudsman? In 2014, I was appointed as the resident liaison by then the the city council member Colson at that time, or so, pardon me, the city manager Colson at that time. I held that position for 2 years. Then again, in 2021, I was approached by city manager Trout, informing me that they wanted to bring that position back as the ombudsman. And so I held that position until late 22, and then was able to hire Leroy Younger to do that, who retired this January. So what's an ombudsman? An ombudsman is a neutral, independent representative who investigates and resolves complaints. They're an advocate for fairness and accountability in government services. They ensure that neighbors have a channel for resolutions, and they work confidentially and impartially to support our community members. The ombudsman responsibilities are to investigate complaints, provide mediation, promote accountability, educate and inform, and to advocate for fairness. And I'll share some other information that's not in your presentation. I'll just speak of the last 2 months. In January, the ombudsman had 150 calls, and in February, it was 45 calls. The various call types are street department calls. Definitely the number was higher in January due to the weather event that we had. There are usually infrastructure calls talking about streets, curbs, and potholes. As Dr. Perez alluded to, we also receive a lot of phone calls from the Ombudsman's office where someone would like to create a C-Click-Fix ticket. They either want to remain anonymous, or maybe they don't have access to a computer, or they just don't want to do it. And so we take a lot of those calls. So some of those are also street light outages, power lines, various noise complaints. In the summer, I'm sure as you can imagine, we receive a lot of C-Click-Fix tickets in regards to grass complaints with the height of it. At cars parked on the grass, we receive police complaints, perceived criminal activity, as well as illegally parked vehicles. We definitely have improved the collaboration with the Shawnee County 911 call center. They're receiving a large amount of calls that were for city services that weren't 911 related. And so we have massaged that relationship, so they just redirect them over to the ombudsman line as well. So how do we serve the community? We do so with public forum and listening sessions, providing resource navigation, information, policy recommendations, complaint resolution, and neighborhood support. We also support a number of committees and councils. That's the Citizens Advisory Council that has a meeting this evening, the Americans with Disabilities Act Advisory Council, otherwise referred to as the ADA, and the Human Relations Council, also known as the HRC. And so wanting really to talk to, provide our neighbors as well as this body, many options of how to get involved. And so we strongly encourage our neighbors to attend community meetings and forums, to share feedback through surveys or direct outreach, to definitely contact the Ombudsman's office for assistance with concerns, to follow the city on social media for updates, and to make a difference in our community by volunteering with us or capturing and utilizing other volunteer opportunities. So I thought it was best that I provided you with a presentation, because people ask me all the time, what do you do in community engagement? And I thought, well, which day? It just depends. It depends on the need. New initiatives, changing our culture of property maintenance, that's an initiative through the Public Health and Safety Committee. Community engagement is very involved in that. We actually have just created 2 new initiatives that will be implementing this spring. So it really just depends on what the need of the community is usually what we do. This is our core section of what we do there, and I wanted to share that with you, and I'll be more than happy to stand for any questions.
So Monique, as far as governance, do you see because you're kind of the liaison between the community and the city officials,
Yeah.
do you see an area open to make that more, I don't want to say more visible, but more, to get the community more not involved, to get the community more open to the liaison you're trying to connect? Like, it appears that the governing body is kind of removed from the community, and so I know you're the bridge, so could we think of some things to help you bridge that gap so it'll be more effective, or at least get more input from the public? Because like on the street, the public is very vocal, and they have some things and ideas about governments, but it's that bridge, and you're the bridge. So is there anything that we could be looking at to help that?
Sure, sure. So thank you for the question. So community engagement as a whole is the bridge. What I'd like to say is this, is that what we have learned, one thing that I've definitely learned over the last 14 years of doing this daily, is that it's about trust. It's about relationships. And so regardless of how much we market things, how much we ask people to share on social media, it's about relationships and building. And I'm seeing that more and more in the last 5 years. So we're being very intentional on finding out who those grassroots leaders are.
Okay.
And making sure to make connections with those grassroots leaders to be able to share information, to share ways people. It took probably about 5 years for people to trust See Click Fix in the means of making sure if something was going to be anonymous. And even when people call me, they're like, are you sure you're not going to put my phone number or my name in? Because they're very concerned either about retaliation or just having their name involved. And so trust is everything.
Okay.
Where the focus is for community engagement this year is we are always looking for partnerships. We have phenomenal partnerships with our social service agencies and with other community leaders as well. But that youth engagement is everything. And that youth engagement from 14 to 25 is imperative. They're making decisions. They can get information to others faster than we ever could imagine. And they really are able to see through the nonsense. So having those real intentional conversations with the youth leadership is everything. And that's youth leadership in regards to being on councils and youth leadership in the street.
Okay.
And so making sure that we really connect there, I think will really help to empower us. Because most young people, when you have conversations with them, have no idea what the local government does. When you get past fire, police, utilities, they're not quite sure what we do. And so really just having those conversations. And so we're beginning by starting some internship opportunities at the high school level. We've been having a conversation at that, allowing them to come to meetings, have a conversation. I always encourage everyone, we need to be very intentional who we invite to the table. And I think that's where we miss out sometimes, is really stopping to think who should be at the table, or these are the right people. If not, who else should come? Or who can we send out into the community to have a conversation with those that we need to come to the table to trust us enough to be able to have those conversations. So I believe that we're doing much better at it. It's just going to take some more time. If there are those in the community that you believe that should be at the table or that has critical information to share, send them our way. If they don't want to come to a formal meeting, because it can be very intimidating to come to a formal meeting such as this, to have someone come up to share their thoughts. Have them give us a call, give me a call. I don't drink coffee, but I can drink a Sprite or a lemonade, and I don't mind going to meet them where they are. And I think meeting people where they are is huge for us. And in today's time, I think we just have to be very intentional in doing so.
Okay.
I'm sorry, there's a long answer for you.
So can I rephrase? It's education.
It's education,
Educating
yes.
folks? Okay.
It's education and it's engagement.
I will contact you about internships in the high school.
Sure, absolutely.
I just retired, and I used to be a government teacher in 501.
Phenomenal.
So, I did my little part about educating students
That's
about
a huge part.
city councils
We
and whatnot.
appreciate
So,
that.
Awesome. Okay, I have a question. In your presentation, you talked about surveys. And we just heard from Dr. Perez about surveys. Are they similar or close in questions, topic matter?
Depends on what the program is.
Okay.
So we create surveys based upon either the initiative or the program. And so we have Director Garrett, and I'm hoping, I don't know if I've overlooked it, if he's already presented. If not, I think Director Garrett would be a wonderful person to come and present, even though he's sitting behind the screen, because Director Garrett and his team are powerful. If there's a survey that we need, is there information we need to get, we get together to figure out, first of all, who's our audience? What's the best way to connect with them? And then we figure out if it's a Survey Monkey form, if it's something that's a hard copy. I also want to make sure to stress that we are very intentional on how we approach getting information to the community. We know our segments of the populace. It's very easy for us to be assumptive that everyone has a cell phone, that everyone has a computer, and that's not the case. And we found out through our TSC Get Digital program, we were able to distribute over 1,400 refurbished computers into the community for those persons 60 and over. And so we know that's still a disconnect. And with that, my department usually puts out anywhere between 7,500 and 10,000 resource bags a year, because we're getting them in the hands of persons that don't have that digital connection, right? So with the surveys, it just depends on the initiative. Some surveys can be 10 questions long. Some surveys need to be 3 questions long, depending on the data we're trying to extract and the information that we're trying to be able to project into the community. So it just depends.
So it could be something like a survey that asks for input on pothole filling.
Absolutely.
Or a survey that asks about perception of community officers, of
Sure.
the police force.
Absolutely.
Any,
Yes, ma'am. What we do know is that our community, and I'm sure this includes each of you because it includes myself, we're exhausted from surveys, and especially lengthy surveys. And so we have learned to make them succinct, ask the few questions, and then allow them to expound if they like to, but not to demand it. And that's where we receive the most responses, that people are able to go on, click, 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 just be done with it. If they would like to share more, be contacted, we provide those options as well.
last question about the surveys.
Sure.
Are they on the website of the city? Are they set social media?
Both.
Are they sent out?
They're usually all three of those. And we also provide hard copies, depending on, again, which audience we're trying to target.
I did have one. I know that, our main mission is to talk about ensuring that the city is set up with the model to be effective and efficient representatives of an entire city. And you, more than a lot of people, understand what it takes to get that together. And in that, we've talked a lot about citizen input. I mean, we've got a whole team here for citizen input. I'm familiar with the HRC, but we do things, we did our age-friendly city recognition last year where, ADA also does things like that as well. Do you ever feel like the city, while it's always important to get citizen feedback, city staff are spread thin on the amount of different commissions and councils and things that we put together that require a city staff to handle these issues that are brought to them? Do we ever feel like that we could be more efficient in getting groups of people together like the HRC and the ADA groups together and say, hey, we work on a lot of the same stuff. Let's do one meeting instead of 2 a month and get the same thing done?
Great question. I'm thinking about how I want to respond to that. Do I think that city staff may be pulled thin, staffing many of the commissions or councils or whatever they may be titled? Possibly. I can't speak to that, actually. I can't speak on behalf of everyone else. Do I believe there's more room for collaboration? Absolutely there is. But I do also believe that I'm not sure that all committees know what they do. So I think that maybe there should be an opportunity for a meet and greet of all of the commissions and councils to get together and have one person, possibly the chair, share, and then have some dialogue on what could we do differently. What subject matters are we all trying to target? Where are we missing that we could improve our communication with the community? Absolutely, I think there's room for improvement for all of us.
Yeah, and I just, say these things because we're familiar with, we have events and we get to mingle with 1 or 2 other committee people, and they ask us, what is it you really do?
Absolutely.
So, but then we all have to put together annual reports to governing body, and it all requires city staff, and we want to make sure that, we're a part of that. Citizens want the city to run effectively and do its job, and if you've got 2 committees doing the same thing, is an effective form of government. So, not that there's one answer to that, but using those resources we have efficiently, I think, is important as we're talking about city charter and things like that. So, I appreciate all that you do and having 4 hats on at any given time.
Thank you, sir.
And still producing with a fantastic team, fantastic results for the community. And so that education piece, I think, is huge as well.
Sure. Thank you for the kind words. Thank you, sir.
Ms. Glaude, do you answer to the assistant city manager or directly to the city manager?
Directly to the city manager.
You do, okay.
Yes.
Okay, good. Well, an earlier conferee, a council member, made the observation that he wished that the city council would take more seriously the recommendations that come out of some of the committees and councils that you work with. Now, you're not those you provide assistance to them. So I
Correct.
understand the role you have. But do you have any observation about the, I don't want to say legitimacy, but just the ability of these councils, these citizen groups, to influence the policymaking of the governing body.
Sure. So I've never experienced that. I have always experienced that the governing body has been very receptive to the recommendations or the concerns of any of the councils or committees. So I wouldn't be able to speak to that because I've never experienced it. I've always seen it in a very positive light.
Okay, good, good, good. And you've been in this role how long?
Which role? No. I've been the Director of Community Engagement since its inception in December of 2014. I've been the interim DI officer since Director De La Rosa left in February of last year, so for the last year and a half, as well as the ADA coordinator.
Was that a new position that was created
Which position, ma'am?
for De La Rosa? Or was that a position that,
It was a new position that was created, I believe, in January of '23.
I guess my last question would be, in your workings with the governing body, I know that you just spoke about how they're pretty receptive to citizen input through our councils and commissions, but do you feel as your role in city staff and as a director that you work really well with the governing body? Do you feel that we've heard a lot of good things about our form of government. Do you ever feel that separation where the city manager's the go-between? Do you ever feel like there's any resistance? Or do you have anything at all just as far as your communication with the governing body back and forth in our current form of government?
Sure. So I can only speak, I would like to speak in regards to the current form of communication. We're very appreciative of Dr. Perez offering us the opportunity to be able to speak directly to the governing body members as they are able to do so with us as well. Definitely out of respect, we keep Dr. Perez in the loop of what's going on, but I have never in my 19-year tenure had any concerns or issues with speaking with governing bodies. They have been respectful to staff. They've allowed us to be very transparent and very open, and that's very appreciative to those of us that do this work on a daily basis.
Perfect.
Other questions?
The last one, Monique,
Yes.
is I love how the grassroots, because that's what I'm thinking about in this governing. I'm thinking about the neighborhoods.
Yes.
And so I been to some of the CAC meetings, and it can get a little contentious.
Yes,
It gets
ma'am.
rowdy.
Yes,
It can get
ma'am.
rowdy. However, do you think from that the council, the city governance is responsive to what? And I know it's a lot, and sometimes it's a lot. Anyway, I'll just say that. Do you think that they respond, or have you heard from the neighborhoods that they're satisfied with the response? Like, what's the grassroots? What's their perception of how this relationship is going?
Sure. So I will respond to that as respectively as I possibly can. We are very appreciative of our NIA, Neighborhood Improvement Associations, and our neighborhood associations, and any other collective neighborhood group that volunteers to make their neighborhood, our community better. Very appreciative of their volunteerism. I just don't know that the neighborhood groups are a good representation of the community. And when I spoke grassroots, that's separate from me. I have a connection with neighborhood leaders that want to have a connection with the city, and so I can directly go to them. We have segments of the populace that we have no connection with whatsoever, that's never had a connection with the city. I'll give you an example. Nextdoor, I love Nextdoor. And the reason why is we have 58,000 people that follow us on Nextdoor. And then anytime that Director Garrett or his team makes a post, or myself, and there's a couple of other people that have that opportunity, I can go back and look at how many people have followed it. And they're not just following it. That means with Nextdoor that they've opened it up. And my hope is at least they read it, right? And so sometimes we can make a post, and there's 5,700 people that have looked. That's huge in our community to have 5,700 people look at a post, right? And so that's a connection that somehow we're trying to figure out how to really get these other people involved. But at least we know they trust us enough to read it and to look at it or to pass information on. It's very exciting for me when someone says, oh, so-and-so told me to contact you. And I'm like, well, who in the world is so-and-so? And I ask them, like, oh, they received a resource bag. Or My mother told me and told the neighbor, and it's like phenomenal. They trust us enough that they've let us in, even enough to be able to have some conversation. So the grassroots, and I'm speaking of groups that I'm speaking of are the college students, are the neighbors in the community that have never gone to a neighborhood meeting, but they have a phone chain. Any other group, maybe it's some business owners. There's other pockets that we need to make a connection with, and that we need persons such as yourself and others to say, trust them enough to have the conversation. And so I don't want to really put a title on them, but there's a whole segment of people out there that we need to connect with. And one group that I think is essential for us to connect with is that 21 to 40.
Okay.
They're not going to come to a meeting. They have too many other things going on in their life and going on that they're not interested in coming to a meeting. They're not interested in maybe per se doing a survey, but if somehow they could get their thoughts shared with us, they'd be pretty vocal in regards to that, right? Maybe it's a text. Maybe it's someone else texting for them, right? And I can speak of that because I have 2 children that are in that age group that I beg my son, he's like, a meeting? How much money could I donate? Instead, and I'm like, oh, very interesting. So he'd rather not go to the meeting in his neighborhood, but he's more than willing to give money every month for whatever initiatives they may have. Where my daughter, on the other hand, is like, I'm not interested in meeting, but what needs to be done? And you know Lundy. Right. What needs to be done, I'll go do it. I need to go volunteer, but a meeting, not interested. So we're just trying to figure out those grassroots groups that we can figure out where can we use their expertise, where can we use their knowledge base, where can we get their feedback from and get them involved. And so those are the groups that we're looking for the next 2 years to be able to make a connection with.
Okay. Gotcha. And you feel empowered and you have the resource from this form of government to do so?
Oh, yes, ma'am, absolutely.
Okay.
Yes. I started on the first day, I believe my first day I started with the first city manager, with City Manager Bonaparte. We both went to orientation together. So I only know this form of government.
Okay.
And I can't speak to the other because I've never experienced it, but this form of government has worked very well with the directives I've been given to be able to do my job with my team.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Awesome.
Any other questions? It's helpful. That's
Thank you for
good.
the opportunity.
Thank you very much.
Thank
for
you.
that.
You're most welcome.
Great time.
You're most
Thank
welcome.
you.
You're welcome.
Take care and get back to work.
Right.
Can I see him here? Would you like me to invite him in? Yes.
Oh, is he
Please,
just standing
thank
up?
you.
Yeah, great.
Well, we have the mayor scheduled at 12:30.
He's standing right outside the door.
I'm sorry?
He's
He's
ready.
here.
He's ready, Jim.
Chairman, I have a question. I don't know, I think some of us, I received an email from a citizen.
I'm sorry, Connie, what?
I received an email from a citizen with comments. Did anybody else get this?
Yes.
Yes. And so, that's under the public comment, and I'll stop talking about that, but it is out there.
I guess I did not receive that email. That's it.
So,
You didn't get it?
I did not see that. Oh, well, then that would be
10:45.
why.
Committee members, if you'd like, I can make sure that that's added as an attachment to the minutes for this.
That would
meeting.
be
Yes,
great,
please.
yes.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
Hello. I think it's your turn. We'll have you sit right up here up front.
Up here, Mayor.
I'm kind of used to that spot.
There you go.
Good to see you there.
See you.
Hi, good to see you.
How you doing, Jeff? Padilla, how are you?
I'm well.
Good. Walk around.
You don't need to
Our last
see it.
conferee needs no introduction. He's everywhere, all the time. Any kind of public event, any committee meeting, the mayor is there.
Brenda keeps track of me. She tells me where to be. So how's the meetings going?
We're collecting information. We've had very little public input to this point, but we're hoping to resolve that shortly with a little more media exposure and inviting people to come in, where we've got some more organizations that we're going to be seeing in the next couple meetings.
How many meetings have you had so far?
This is the fourth.
The fourth? primarily staff right now that
Yeah.
what you've been doing?
You had a couple council members.
Okay.
And Dr. Perez was here today.
Oh, good.
And then Monique, I think you saw.
Yeah.
And it was good information from them.
Well, that's good. That's a hard act to
And
follow.
they're generally pretty happy.
No,
You know?
Monique is, yes.
They think things are going pretty well.
Oh, well, good.
Okay.
I tend to agree with them.
Yeah. Well, I think
We're still searching for problems.
Hey, I think we've got a good lead. So, I think really today we want to hear, your perspective. I know that when we had our first meeting, you talked a little
Surely.
bit, but we'd love to hear a little bit more from you as far as a citizen, as a former council member, as the mayor. Nobody's had any real issues with the form of government, but how can we be more effective, more efficient as representatives and as a city? And then we'll kind of go from there. So we'll kind of do it back and forth.
Okay, well, since I grew up here in Topeka, I've seen the form of government change, and I worked as an employee when we had the strong mayor form of government, and then when we went through the transition to what we currently have now. As an employee, you see it from a different side oftentimes. And the strong mayor form of government, I think, worked so long as, and I know this is nothing you have any control over, you get the right people. Some people take that literally to be a strong mayor, and some are less prone to take suggestions, comments, input from not only staff, but from the public themselves. I know as an employee of the city, at least the mayors that I served under at the police department, they were always open for me, but law enforcement always has kind of a foot in the door anyway, So it gets you into a lot of things, and so while I think they were very accommodating and responsive to my request to visit with them and talk with them, even though I was at, I guess you would consider a lower level of authority in the city. It seemed to work well, except for me as an observer. For some reason or other, it seemed to always boil down to personalities. And if the strong mayor had a personality that was accepting and listening, things went along well. But there's always that challenge that because you're the mayor, you think you know everything. And that comes across pretty badly. And what you then get is a confrontation. And it was frustrating for me as an employee sometimes to see what was supposed to be an issue they were discussing turned into a conflict of personalities. So I don't know if that was a driving force for us to move into a city manager form of government, because that has seemed to have reduced considerably, but not altogether. I prefer the current form of government, city manager form of government. As an observation, again, by an employee, it always seemed that some people take that elected office automatically makes you a pretty much subject matter expert on everything. And I always determined myself that if I ever got the opportunity to serve in the capacity of council, never thinking about a mayor, that'd be the first thing I would do, is make it clear that I'm not here as an expert in the fields that are important to service for the city. And as long as you can keep that in your mind, you're much better in being able to learn from others who are doing the job, rather than thinking that, immediately, well, you should do it this way, without any experience in how it's been done. And so the city manager form of government, I think, allows a mayor to be what we currently are, and that is an advocate for a number of things for the city. for infrastructure improvements, economic development, enabling local nonprofit organizations to fill the gap where government can't always fill. And that takes up more time than people would think. You know, you make a comment that you see me everywhere and doing a lot of things. That's important. I can't sit behind that desk and do those things. I have meetings in my office. After this today, I'm meeting the council from India that's coming to our office. So those are kinds of things that people in the general public in Topeka would not know anything of and wonder, well, why are you doing that? It's public relations. It's public relations for the city. I kind of look at the separation of responsibilities of my office and that of city manager as I welcome you at the front door, I ask what your needs are, and then I turn it over to the city manager who finds that subject matter expert who can get you where you need to be. Yeah, get them in the right place. And it works well because I've seen the other side of it when a mayor tries to do all things, including supervising all the public service employees and all the department heads, and then get distracted from what the other job is, or spend too much time doing that and not getting updated on what's going on in the different departments. How it is now, and Dr. Perez may have mentioned it, I meet with him on a regular basis and with the city attorney. So I know what's going on, but I'm not directing the immediate work that's being done. You know, it's kind of like if you were constantly, it'd be like somebody looking over your shoulder all the time, and it doesn't instill confidence in your staff and in your employees. If we didn't think Dr. Perez could do that job, we shouldn't have hired him. I think he's doing an excellent job. I think he's different from what Topeka has cookie cuttered in the way of what they think a city manager should be. I think he's more innovative than some have been in the past. I think he is one of those guys, and I used to say this when I took office as a councilman. I said, you know, I'm getting a little frustrated here because sometimes I ask a question and I get a response of, well, we can't do that. And it was accepted. And I would say, well, why can't we do it? And they would tell me, and I said, okay, I got you. You should know. But what other way is there to get it done? If you and I agree that this is the good thing to get to, how do we get there? And that's the thing that I like about Dr. Perez. He does the same thing. He is really trying to get people to think differently and quit hitting that wall and find a way to climb over it or go around it. And that takes a lot of effort. And for a mayor to try and do that at every department head and every division that we have to serve the city, it can be pretty distracting if you're trying to also be the guy who's going to see the lieutenant governor and the governor for other economic issues, and working with the legislature. There's got to be a balance, I think, of responsibilities. And I think the current system serves that balance. There's still, I think, a tendency for some who are traditionalists to say, well, he can't do it without some oversight. I don't look at it as oversight. I look at it as support. If we offer support, we still find out where we are in the problem in the project by saying, hey, Jim, how's your project going? What can I do for you? Well, he'll tell me how it's going. He'll tell me what stage it's in. He'll tell me what difficulties he's running into. And that helps me understand where in the city, as the mayor, I need to ask the city manager, what are you doing to help Jim get his project done? How can we move him forward on something? I won't be specific, but, and mention names, but I know a councilman came to me and he was a little frustrated about some things that were not happening in his district. He felt like he was kind of getting overlooked, you know, and that happens. So I brought him in and talked with him 2 or 3 times, really tried to get a pinpoint on what he was wanting to accomplish. And the first thing I needed to show him is how he can be that person to bring the team together that helps him get to where he needs to be. And he said to me, he said, well, that's a better approach than what I was doing. I was asking Jim to do this, asking Jim to do that. Why aren't you doing this, Jim? But now, if I know that I can talk and say, Jim, what resources do you need to help you get to where I would like to see us to go? That gives me a better understanding. So now, I brought him in, we put together a team for him, specifically for his idea. And he's very, very excited about being able to work with that team. Now, I just backed away from it now. So when I meet with him, because I try to meet with the council members on a regular basis, I ask him how things are going. He said, good, but maybe we could use this or that. I said, let the city manager know. So I like the hands off, but at the same time to be updated, informed, and don't get caught off guard by surprises. Nobody likes those. So for me, I think as we continue to look toward efficiencies, and the thing that we continue to try and get, and that's customer service, raised to a level that it needs to be for a capital city. I know city manager now is looking at some reorganization possibilities, some combination of duties, so that, as he mentioned in our press conference, if there's a hiring freeze, that means that we have to be more efficient with the people that we have. And he's best suited to do that rather than a strong mayor who just comes in and says, well, you know, I think Brenda ought to be over there. Well, why? Well, either because I like her or don't like her, or I know something about her, or I don't know something about her. A city manager has a better feel for her skills, qualifications, and abilities, and what the workload is already on those people we're asking to do more work. Because you can overwork the good workers and burn them out. I've seen that happen on a regular basis. And not just with the city. Police department had that same issue. The hard workers. Zach's always getting things done, so give it to Zach, give it to Zach. Well, Mike's over here doing nothing. Well, you can't do that for very long. Zach's gonna let you know. And the work quality is gonna suffer. So for me, coming here to visit with you today, I didn't really have a whole lot of, I know that some have come in with a list of this, list of that. I'm not surprised. But you know, wants are easy to put on a piece of paper. But working to get to work together is a bit more difficult. Bullet points kind of give you a reminder of where you want to be, but you have to be able to deviate from that. And that's what I think our current form of government serves. I think oftentimes, though, we have to be reminded that the governing body is a policy body. They're not, and should not, in my opinion, get so involved with the day-to-day work that says, Zach, what time did you get work today? What is the plan for your staff today? That's not our job. Some people get a little confused with that. They think that I can call him up and say, well, I don't care what you're doing, this is what I want you to do. That's not our job. I think that has to be made clear over and over. I get that from my service time. I get that from law enforcement. It's all generated on a chain of command. Who needs to know? Solve the problem at the lowest level possible so it doesn't rise all the way up to the top. So I give everybody a chance to get their input. And so for me, whenever I have something I would like to get done, let's say that Zach's called in and said that, you know, I'm not getting any answers from the water department about my water bill. Okay, let's see what I can do about it. I'm not gonna go get you answers, because there are a lot of other things I'm doing. There are a whole lot of Zacks out there that want that personal attention. That's why we have the people in place that we do. But I will call, and I'll let the city manager know, I've got this concern from a citizen. Could you please assign it to the appropriate person and have them respond? And then I know it's gonna be getting taken care of. And when I meet with the city manager a week or two later, I'll say, how'd that go? Did that get resolved? He'll be able to tell me. And I haven't told him how to get it done. I just asked him to get it done. And that's a difference than me calling up the utilities office and say, hey, Zach's been bugging me, somebody give him a call. Well, Zach's got his own work schedule. Who fills out Zach's performance evaluation? Not me. His supervisor and his director. So they have to know if Zach is doing the job, so they can give him the performance evaluation he deserves. I don't see what Zach does every day, so I shouldn't get involved with that assignment of work that might take him away from his boss. His director may have already said, you've got a project right now, and it needs to be here by Friday, and I'm calling him saying, no, I want something done by Wednesday. Well, where's he get pulled?
Yeah.
Who does it respond to? Because some employees really feel that a council person or a mayor could fire them for not doing their job. I don't have that authority at all, and I've made it clear. That's not my job. That's the city manager who works down that chain, who looks at performance measures that are standardized and kept in that division. That's his job, or her job, whoever's serving as city manager. But it's not a council person's job, and it's not a mayor's job. That would be too arbitrary and would cause chaos, in my opinion. So I think that delineation of work between policy and advocate for the city and actual operations oversight by using a mayor and a city manager seems to be more effective. And quite honestly, I think it's one that the community likes. Because if they just think I'm the one that's answering all the questions and I don't have the time to answer or get back with an email, they get frustrated. But if I can give it to somebody else who can help them get a quicker answer, the answer that they want or need, then we're satisfying the public. Yeah. Have you had any red flags so far in your conversations with staff? Or you don't have to name any names.
I think that you've echoed pretty well the desire to maintain the manager form of government. I think that you gave a lot of really great detail because everybody says they like it. That gives a whole lot more perspective on the benefits of it. Before I get into questions, I'll let everybody else talk about what they've heard.
I agree, Zach. I think it's just too big to not have a manager, mayor, council form. It's just not efficient with the size and population and services offered. And so I understand folks that want to make the change back to a strong mayor, but it's not feasible, doable, fill in the blank. I'd like to ask a couple questions.
Surely.
If I may. And I know it's been asked before. I'm asking your thoughts because I'm hearing it in past reports and information in the past. Do you think the size of council needs to be addressed, more, fewer members, and then the at-large council member question as well?
You know, it's quick. You're right. It has been asked before.
Yes.
And I've considered it, and I've talked to other communities where they have done that.
Yes.
And it's funny, again, it's people.
Yes.
It's been suggested that maybe we have 5 council members running for specific districts and maybe 2 or 3 at-large members. From what I've received from some mayors who have gone through that, said that it sounds good to begin with, but what happens is those who are at large have taken on the tendency, well, because I was elected at large, I'm at a higher level than you are because
I could see that.
you were only elected for a district.
He's like turf wars.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Hierarchy. That gets a push and pull. It shouldn't, but people are people. And for me, I think for the size of Topeka, it's a big, small town. I think the public is satisfied more with having at least a designated council person to reach out to.
That's my
I mean, that's the whole thing about local government, is that you're able to reach out to them, talk to them, and get.
Have that connection.
Yeah. If you don't, well, just like when we used to have the former governor, a good friend of mine, Jack Alexander, I used to kid around and joke with him all the time, great guy. And him and the other commissioners, they had a broader, obviously, focus of their work for constituents because they were elected at large. And so they didn't get the opportunity to be as specific to an area as not like now we have. Yeah. Mhm. But if we were to reduce the number of council members, I think you'd just have to reduce it overall. That overall we would go from 9 to 6, and all of them elected at large. Just because that way they were responsive to everybody, and not in any single district, and you don't set up that hierarchy within the council. And I'm not saying it would happen, but the mayors that I've talked to, one good friend of mine that I met when I became mayor, I, along with 39 other mayors, went to Harvard and went through that Harvard program for new mayors. And I got to be pretty good friends with him. And he would tell me, and still am, he would tell me the problems that he had run into in his city, because he said literally in some ways, the council felt that they had all authority and I had none. And he said they would literally lock me out of committee meetings. And I told him, well, my law enforcement background, that wouldn't go very far. It's so frustrating because I don't care what you set up. If the right people don't come into the job for the right reason, you're going to have issues. Hopefully, if they come in with a chip on their shoulder or I'm going to change the world, they'll soon learn they're one vote. And that's what I've always reminded myself. I can't get anything done by myself. Neither can any of these council members. They've got to build relationships and coalitions. And I think that fosters that, is it being, well, as long as you keep the numbers to where you don't feel like you have all the authority to get it done and don't need my help. And I think of that, I guess get a little nervous for me.
Now
So
that we've got limited time, so yeah, I wanted to
Sorry.
point out that we've got
I
like
can
5
get
or
on a
6.
roll.
So, well, but I know that we've all probably got questions, so we might want to entertain either extending the time or figuring that out before we get right up to 1 o'clock. Or we can just keep asking questions till 1
Well,
o'clock.
you can do that or just tell me to
Okay.
go like that.
I just
Like Brandon
got
does at
one.
council.
Yeah, I just got one. Okay, so Mayor, you are a unique perspective. You have a fourfold. You are a citizen. You've been an employee. You've been a council member. Now you're a mayor. So your perspective on this, I think, and especially getting it out to explain, I think it's going to be invaluable for this current form of governance that we have. And because I actually thought at first, before I just heard you, that, okay, maybe there is a little bit of something to the strong mayor. And I've gotten phone calls. They don't want to be public, but I have gotten phone calls in support of the strong mayor. But as you're talking and you're breaking it down, your perspective, I think, is great. It's kind of like your Moses' father-in-law. He told you cannot, one person cannot do the job. If one person has all the authority, it goes bad for us all. And so I appreciate that because I got a better understanding.
Thank you.
I would, kind of on the same, what we've just been talking about, I want to kind of focus on council a little bit. You know, I like the amount of people we've got. I think that works really well. I like the districts and having one at-large mayor, it makes sense to me. But the question that I've asked other council members or other governing body members is, we know that while local government seems to be the most important day-to-day that affects everybody's lives, those turnouts in elections are usually really low. And with Topeka, like a lot of other municipalities, they're like the off-season elections where that's the only thing on your ballot. Like, we've talked about, do you think it would be advantageous to change whether it's term limits or amount of years someone serves? Like I know that council and the mayor both serve 4 years. Should that be changed up? Or doing them all in 1 year, all 9, 1 year, every district except for election like the legislature, and then the mayor is offset, you know, maybe they're on that off year, there's mayor 1 year, and then 2 years later it's council, and then goes on from there. I'm just curious to see what your thoughts would be having served in multiple capacities.
Well, voter turnout has always been an issue and problem. They turn out when the votes for an election year for the country. That's when everybody shows up. But then in the off years, everybody's kind of, well, there isn't anything locally that is really pressing for me, so they kind of set back a little bit, which is unfortunate. I've tried to make as much noise as I can about how important local government is. I know that, I don't want to step on anybody's toes, but there's a constant effort by the state to dictate to cities how they govern their cities. And quite honestly, it gets kind of tiresome because people in Garden City don't need to be voting on what happens in Topeka. And it's a constant pushback to maintain our sovereignty. That's how I want to say it. And I always go back to the example that Topeka had when we all went through the pandemic. Topeka did an excellent job of taking care of Topekans. Often we said, we're not going to sit around and wait for the federal government or the state to show up. We're going to do what we need to do with Topeka. And it turned out really well. Local citizens stepped up and did things that government wasn't doing, but that they felt encouraged that government would support them in doing it. And so for me, I think changing the date, I don't know if it would make a difference. I don't think that a wholesale election that we all go to the polls and everybody comes in new would be good for the city. It is important to have a staggered system because you have to have some experience. I've been here, and you're new, and I know you want to get involved, but let's learn. I know when my first year as a councilman, and I had people make mention to me about this. They would say, "Mike, you don't say much." So he said, "But when you do talk, people kind of lean forward and listen." I said, "Well, one, I learn a lot more by listening than talking. And when I finally have something to say, it's usually based on everything I've heard from everybody else. I'm not constantly jumping in and interrupting your idea or your idea. I'm listening to your idea. So when I come together and speak, it's typically a little bit of her, a little bit of her, a little bit of him, and try to bring it together. So that experience is important. I know, like I'll mention both the gentlemen, our newest councilman, Miller and Banks. I really enjoy visiting and talking with them. And I've seen them grow in their role on the council because they've got through their first year They're listening, they're learning, and now they're feeling more comfortable in moving forward. Councilwoman Hofer is another example. She came on very quiet, very smart person. She gives a lot of thought before she says anything. But again, that's that experience. She and I meet whenever we can. She comes into the office. I do that today. I was going to have meetings with a couple of our councilmen. I do that on a regular basis. Bounce things through before it gets to the council meeting so that we're still working in that same direction. Or if we're not, that we course correct. So that it's not a confrontational. Yeah.
Mayor,
Chair.
excuse me, Mayor,
Yeah,
I
I'm
think
sorry to
we're
interrupt.
just about run out of
It's
time.
1 o'clock.
Okay,
Yeah.
I don't know if we're going to have an opportunity for you to be back in front of the committee or not, but I wanted to say, I've known mayors and watched mayors all the way going back to Bill McCormick, and I just have always admired you for your presence and your throughout the community, community events, programs. You're always there, and I think that's one reason why we don't have a room full of angry people here. I'm serious. I mean, you've been the public face for this community for the last few years, and the effort that you make is appreciated.
Well, I appreciate that.
I don't know what your
Yeah.
calendar looks like. I
Oh,
don't
it's
want to look
crazy.
at it.
Brenda knows that too. But I appreciate that. And, I enjoy it. Like, I don't know if you watched council meeting the other night. I talked about reading to fifth graders over at Loman Hill. I mean, that was a blast. I don't know that city managers have time to do that. That's what the mayor's supposed to do. And get out there and represent the city as a whole by being that local government face, just like cops and firemen are. And they're recognized as members of local government. So I want to thank you for the time to visit with you. I should have warned you in advance that I go off script pretty quickly, and I can talk quite a bit. So, given the chance,
But your door is open if we have any
Right.
questions, follow-up questions,
anytime,
right?
This is
just give
very
me a call, or Jane for that matter, and she'll set it up for me. I'd be glad to come back and visit, just to
very
kind of get a touch for where you guys are. If you're feeling you as a group are working well together, and if you're getting the input that you had hoped to make a recommendation.
Okay,
Thank you so much for your
Thank
time.
you.
You're welcome, thank you.
thank you, sir.
We're entirely out of time, so.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
I move that we adjourn.
Second?
Second.
It's been moved to second to adjourn this meeting. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you for your time, folks.
So
Thank
our
you.
public comment.
It's a good session.